Hey everybody, it's your boy Duel, back with another spectacular Spider-Man review episode. And before we jump into the episode, I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who watched and liked episode 5. I really appreciate it. That means so much to me that so many people are liking that episode. So anyway, we're just going to jump right into it because this is another heavy one. And this is episode 6, titled The Invisible Hand, and it was written by Matt Wayne and directed by Dave Bullock. So Otto Octavius is talking to O'Hearn, and already O'Hearn is just trying to get into a new suit. Probably convince him that he could stop Spider-Man, so that's why he's in there. But it's almost like Otto is telling O'Hearn, like warning him almost, like, hey, if you do this, this is gonna penetrate your skin. Well, it's gonna penetrate your skin, and the armor will fuse to your skin, and you're not gonna be able to get out of the suit. And O'Hearn is just immediately like, yeah, sign me up. What are you waiting for? And then Norman and Hammerhead come in, and Hammerhead's like, sounds like you're trying to convince my boy not to do this. And so basically they make Otto sweat a little bit, and tells him, it's like, hey Otto, no more flukes like the Sandman. We're going to keep doing this as many times as we can with as many subjects as we can, and we'll go through as many scientists as we need to. Pretty much saying like, hey, we're doing this with or without you, so either get on board or get the F out, right? So the Norman says that this experiment on O'Hearn is going to please Mr. Lincoln, and Hammerhead says, hey, we don't say his name. We don't call him by that. You call him by the big man and the big man only. So it's like, oh, okay, whatever. And of course, Norman doesn't care, like, at all. This guy is just not fazed by anything. And so they end up moving forward with the experiment. And O'Hearn is not liking it. It looks like it's hurting him, but they don't care. And, you know, he's obviously now he's turning into the Rhino. So he gets transformed into the Rhino, he gets mad, and he says he's going to go after Spider-Man. He breaks out of the facility, and he goes on the hunt for Spider-Man, and thus begins the episode. After the title credits, the thieves rob a bank, and Spider-Man is seen chasing after them, and after a petty chase, the thieves end up catching him. We didn't get to a scene where Eddie is with Gwen, and it looks like Gwen is at Dr. Connor's lab, but they don't announce that they're at Dr. Connor's lab. This is actually a really quick scene, and Eddie asks Gwen if Peter asked out Gwen yet to the formal, and Gwen says no, that he hasn't, and that Peter isn't going anyway, so it doesn't matter. And Eddie says, well, I'll be your date, and Gwen doesn't actually agree in the scene, but I think it's implied that she will agree. And that's about it. That scene goes very quickly. So we now move over to the Bugle, where Peter is trying to convince Betty to go to the formal again. And let me just stop the review really quick and say that this scene is so cringe. Like, it's very pathetic and almost comes off like this is not Peter Parker a little bit. I understand this is like this take on the character of Peter, but Peter is not usually supposed to be this confident, so it just comes off really cringe and weird to see Peter trying so hard to get this girl that, you know, is out of his league to go out with him, and she ends up saying, you know, hey, look, I'll it's a maybe, it's a solid maybe. Jameson comes up to Peter and says, hey Peter, your photos suck, and they are crappy photos. I looked at them, they're not very good. So Peter's pretty ecstatic after he realizes that he's worn Betty down. He's swinging around in a Spider-Man costume, and he's just over the moon. They get home, and when I say they, I mean Peter and May are home. May says that she's got Ben's old tux, and you know, it's gonna be good that he's been saving all this money because the corsage and the car service will be expensive on top of the tux. And after Peter is done gloating that he's made so much money, he realizes that he doesn't even have close to enough money for the corsage or the car service. And then Peter tells May about Betty, and May is like, what do you mean, Betty? Who is this Betty person? How dare you? And really, this is so weird because May is just dead set on Peter meeting Mary Jane because she just has such a wonderful personality, in which, of course, Peter cringes to. And so, Peter's just like, I don't really want to go out with this person because I don't know what Peter is thinking. Like, I understand that like back then, like thinking that your parents or maybe like an adult figure or a parental figure in your life thought something was cool or good, you were usually, your first reaction was to cringe to it or dislike it or go against it. And, oh, well, what I think is cool is cool. What she thinks is cool is probably not cool. And in this case, don't judge a book by its cover kind of thing, right? So, and I think that's what they've been teasing this whole time throughout these episodes. Every time May has brought up Mary Jane, Peter's just like, no. But really, Mary Jane is obviously this bombshell that he must meet. He must meet her. So anyway, May is not happy about who this Betty person is. So she finds out who Betty is. She goes to the Bugle, and she actually ends up going to meet Betty. And this is also super cringe. We transition to the school where Harry says that he's going to the formal with Gloria. And there's something I want to note here, and it's not really part of the episode or ever mentioned or seen again, but Peter's shirt tag is sticking out of his shirt. It has no bearing on the episode whatsoever. I just noticed it and thought it was super strange. Flash says that Peter's date isn't real and that he's pretty much making it up. And he thinks that Parker will show up without a date. And Peter, of course, doesn't like this and challenges Flash and says, I'll make that bet. And if I'm wrong, whoever's wrong, or whoever's right about the bet, the person that loses the bet will show up in a cheerleader costume. We now get a scene where Rhino's going through the Bugle and he is looking for Peter. And this is actually a really funny scene because he literally is just like, well, how do I get to Spider-Man? Well, I got to go through Peter. He takes pictures of Spider-Man at the Bugle. So I guess I'll just go into the Bugle. I'll go up the elevator and I'll just ask. So, it seems like that anyway. That's how it comes off when it starts out. Is literally Rhino just walks into the Bugle, he gets in the elevator, and then he just starts, he literally is like having a conversation with a guy in the elevator of what floor he needs to go to, getting to the Bugle. And then as soon as he gets to the Bugle, he just goes on a Rhino rampage. He just loses all that civility that he had in the elevator, and it's completely gone. Peter realizes that Aunt May is trying to talk to Betty, and he immediately is like, I gotta get out of here. So he's like web swinging to the Bugle, not knowing that Rhino is there. He gets there as Peter Parker, and he is like stuck behind a door with all the rampaging that Rhino's been causing. And Rhino is threatening JJ. And this is, in my opinion, this is a nod to Spider-Man, the Raimi movies of Spider-Man, where, and I'm sure this happened in the comics too, where Jonah is seen actually not being a slimy, nasty person. He's actually being a good dude. And by that, I mean the fact that Rhino is literally holding him by his neck and he's threatening JJ to tell him where Peter Parker is. And he's like, who's Peter? I don't know who he is. I get his photos through email. I never met him before. And so basically, I think he ends up throwing JJ, and that's when Peter switches into his spider costume and catches him, and he like webs him to the wall. And you can tell that even though JJ is seen doing this nice thing for Peter, that he still has this. He still has this. I don't even know what the word is for this. He still does not. He has a dislike for Jonah. I was gonna say like a distasteful or I can't think of the word that I'm trying to say, but anyway, he still does not like Jonah, and he shows that by like webbing Jonah to the ceiling, and he's kind of hanging there, and Jonah's like, oh man, I hate you so much. And literally May and Betty are literally sitting under a desk while Rhino is rampaging and fighting Peter. And May's like, oh man, it's so nice that you have such great coworkers, but you're too old for my little Peter. So Spider-Man, he comes in, he's saving everybody. He's fighting Rhino. And then Rhino is asking, or Spider-Man asks Rhino, like, what do you want with this Peter Parker kid? And Rhino admits, he's like, I'm just looking for you. I don't give a shit about Peter. I care about Spider-Man. And Spider-Man realizes, like, oh, Hearn? And he realizes that it's just Rhino under there. And he realizes that Marco has become the Sandman, and now O'Hearn has become Rhino. And he's like, man, I wonder what's going on, what the big man is planning now, because this is just too weird. These weird creatures are coming out, and they're trying to kill me, and they're seemingly coming out of nowhere. Obviously, the big man's up to it, so he's now tipped off about that. He realizes that doing close combat with Rhino is not going to work. None of his punches work. I think he uses an object to hit Rhino with, and it's a fire extinguisher, and it does no damage to Rhino whatsoever. So he realizes, hey, okay, well, if I can't get an inanimate object, and I can't not inanimate, I cannot think of the words today. He realizes that he can't penetrate Rhino's armor, and so he's like, all right, well, if I can't get through to his armor, then what happens if he goes through 10 pounds of concrete? And he baits him into a wall, but Spider-Man miscalculates how much damage Rhino can actually do, because he goes right through the wall and he starts to fall off. And this is a good moment for Spider-Man, because he's like, oh man, even though these guys are trying to kill me, I do not want this guy to die. I am not trying to kill Rhino. And he immediately tries to save him. He like webs to him, but his webs snap. Like the strength of his webs are just Rhino's just, he weighs way too much. But good enough is that Rhino's blow is softened. He does like crash into the ground, but he comes out and he's just like, thrill ride. Detective tells Rhino he needs to put his hands up, and he's like, oh, put my hands up? Okay. And he like grabs a chunk of concrete and he throws it at the detective. And of course, Spider-Man comes in. He stops that concrete, and right before the detective gets hit with it, and he starts to bait Rhino away from the city, because, you know, he's causing all this mass destruction. Rhino tries to throw an engine block at Spider-Man, but Spider-Man dodges it, and it goes after like this innocent mom and kid, and he saves the mom and kid, stops that from happening. So that's good. After that, Rhino grabs Peter and he like swings him around like the Hulk does in the Avengers, and he chucks Peter into like what looks like a sporting goods store, and Rhino chases after him, and Peter is like about to get stomped, like he is just getting destroyed by Rhino. And then he realizes that Rhino is getting really dehydrated, and he stops for like a drink, and he like has to like squeeze the bottle of water because he can't use his thumbs anymore, which goes to show that O'Hearn didn't really think this whole suit procedure through, but I digress. Spider-Man throws a dumpster on Rhino and baits him into the sewer, pretty much telling him like, hey, you can't catch me, you suck, or whatever. And Rhino chases him after him into the sewer. He leads him into a pipe, and then Rhino starts to get really, really hot, and he starts getting dehydrated. And Spider-Man figures out that since he's so hot, he can't really sweat, that all this heat is getting trapped inside him. And honestly, when you're thinking about this is a dangerous tactic for Peter to use. Peter, like earlier, Peter assumed that Rhino would be able to withstand that concrete, but he didn't. And so he's also assuming here that by dehydrating Rhino, that he doesn't think that he'll kill him. But I also know that this is a cartoon, and the plot of the show must go on, right? But I just think it's odd that Peter assumed something in a few moments ago, and he was wrong, and it almost kills him. And it's the same thing here, right? It's like, okay, well, that almost didn't work, and now you're trying something else that you don't know is going to work, but it obviously ends up working. I just wanted to point it out. So basically, Rhino gets so dehydrated he can't fight Peter anymore. So Peter's assumption here works, is that he gets so dehydrated that he can't fight anymore. And to do this, Spider-Man just breaks all these pipes, which, by the way, he's causing damage to the city, almost more damage than Rhino could cause at this rate. That's not good. I'm not trying to be like Jonah here, but I'm just saying, like, the damage that Spider-Man's causing to stop this guy is not good either. Spider-Man needs to pay for those, right? So anyway, Rhino finally falls down, and he's kind of out of it, and he's like talking about his mom and stuff like that, and man, he says that Mommy, do I need to go to school? And Peter calls him Alexander, and then he's like, but my mom calls me Alexander. And so Spider-Man asks him, like, while he's knocked out, like, who the big man is. And he says that he pretty much tells him that the big man is somebody named Mr. Lincoln. We now move to a scene where Norman and Hammerhead are talking, and Hammerhead says that Oscorp's getting the contract to build Rhino's prison cell. So this is an interesting scene, because at first I thought they were really wanting like a permanent distraction to get rid of Spider-Man, like for a long term. And the timeline's not really shown, but this seems to happen all within like a span of a day or maybe 2 days. Like the first day being O'Hearn gets turned into Rhino, and then the next day he goes after Spider-Man, and that's it. Spider-Man catches him. But then they're like, oh, well, that was the plan all along. Now I get the prison contract. And maybe Norman is just that big brain, just that five head, that he knows that if he knows that Rhino will be good enough to stop Spider-Man, then Spider-Man's out of the way. And if he's not good enough, well, then we're going to need a prison cell to hold this guy in, and that's going to be the end of that. And it's like, well, dang, that's some heavy foreshadowing on Norman's part, I just got to say. Norman tells Hammerhead that the Midtown fights have been becoming too extreme, and now we need to chill out from making these villains. And Hammerhead's, no, we don't stop just because you want to stop. We stop when the big man tells us to stop. And he's like, if you don't keep doing these experiments, then I might just have to leak that Oscorp did all these things. And Norman's like, you have no evidence of that. And Hammerhead says, oh, I know of a doctor that we can utilize to get that information out, and we'll use him as our evidence. And it ends there because Harry interrupts him and pretty much tries to tell him that he's made the team, he's made varsity, he has a date to the formal. And I want to pause really quick because in this scene where Norman is walking and talking to Hammerhead, there's a Green Goblin mask in the background, and I just thought that was a nice little Easter egg. Norman tells Harry that he's in a meeting and to get out, and he just straight up doesn't even give a crap about what Harry has to offer. And this is weird too, because Harry's like, all right, sorry, Dad, and then he like shuts the door, and you're expecting Harry to be kind of upset, but no, he's smiling. So that's something to make note of. JJ says he'll sue Spidey for hanging him from the ceiling, and Betty tells Peter she can't be his date because she's too old, and that's just too weird. Peter ends up talking to Foswell. He's like, well, if I can't get a date with Betty, I'll at least try to figure out who this Mr. Lincoln guy is. And he talks to a guy named Mr. Foswell, and he starts asking about Mr. Lincoln. Foswell says that, oh, Lincoln. Oh, yeah, Lincoln. You mean L. Thompson Lincoln. Rumor has it he's this crime lord, but I checked him out. He's odd, but he's a good guy. And so, of course, Spider-Man, doesn't believe this. And we literally get a scene of Spider-Man going to go see Mr. Lincoln. And this Mr. Lincoln is revealed to be Tombstone, which is a really good Spider-Man villain. Spider-Man tries to take him down, like, look, man, you stop what you're doing, I'll take you down. I just took down Rhino. And literally Tombstone just takes Spidey down immediately, almost immediately. And pretty much tells Spider-Man, like, look, I don't give a crap that you're a hero, but you're picking up all the little guys, and that's a problem for him. So it's like, well, hey, here's what we'll do. You can keep doing your thing, but I'll pay you money for you to look the other way for only my crimes that I see fit. And for like a split second, Peter thinks about it, because like, damn, that's a lot of money that's put in front of him. And then he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And Tombstone's like, all right, well, if you're not going to listen to me, then I guess I'll just have to call the cops on you and call security on you. And so the cops show up, and they're not even hesitant to shoot Spider-Man. And that's because you look up and you see the two goons that he webbed up before he got to see Tombstone. And so immediately like, yeah, Spider-Man's bad. Let's just shoot him. And it's like, okay. So they get into a fight, and Spider-Man escapes. And he is like, all right, well, that was cool.
The Tombstone did make one mistake. Now I know there is a war. So bring it on.
Peter gets ready to go to the formal after he gets home, and he tells May that, or May tells him rather, that sweet Mary Jane is on her way over, and Peter hesitantly answers the door, and it's MJ. And of course, she's like a bombshell. I guess in a cartoon, what can you describe as a bombshell? Who knows? But to Peter, she's a bombshell, right? She's pretty, she's good looking, and that's the end of it. And MJ says her classic line, "Face it, Tiger, you just hit the jackpot." And that's the episode. There's actually a lot that is happening in this episode. And the biggest thing being that Harry is smiling, in my opinion. The Tombstone reveal came very quickly, in my opinion. I thought that was going to go out a couple more episodes in, but I don't remember how many episodes there were per season. I'll have to look. But I thought they outed Tombstone pretty early on. But you could also take into account that this is a kid's show, so they probably are just developing this plot rather quickly so that people can keep up. Even though I would have been fine if I was left guessing for like maybe 2 or 3 more episodes. But it's cool that we got to see that it's Tombstone. And what's interesting to me is that Tombstone seems to like he doesn't even flinch to Spider-Man. It's like, okay, I've taken out guys. This guy is taking out guys that are like Spider-Man or close to his level of power, and Tombstone doesn't even care. Just takes him down immediately. And what's interesting is that Spider-Man isn't even rattled by this. Like you would think that he would get rattled a little bit. Like, oh man, this guy's tough. This is not like everybody. This is not like every other goon that I faced in the last few episodes. This guy is not messing around. Like he doesn't even cross his mind. He's mad. He's like, all right, you want to challenge me, bro? All right, I'm gonna take you down. Like he's just determined. So I don't know. I think it's interesting to see. I'm not used to seeing that out of Peter, but yeah, it was kind of cool to see him kind of get angry like that, and I could see that potentially tying into the symbiote arc, but that might be a little bit too early right now. But I just thought it was super interesting. Harry smiling is super interesting. I don't know, they're literally not planting any other seeds other than the fact that Harry's smiling about something. This could lead to Hobgoblin. I don't know. It's just a guess, but I could be totally off. Maybe Harry's planning on running away and just being a dumb kid. Who the heck knows? And of course, now we have Mary Jane introduced into the plot. So the love triangle begins probably between Betty, Gwen, and MJ. It's definitely going to be Gwen pining after Peter with MJ. That is going to be a fact. But I'm excited to see what's next. And it was cool to see how much fighting. We got a lot of action in this episode. Rhino and Peter are fighting pretty much the entirety of the episode. There's really not a lot of side action going on. Like last episode, we had the football stuff going on. So it was kind of back and forth between that and Sandman. I couldn't think of the name. And so we got a lot of back and forth there. But for this episode, it was just straight up action almost the whole time, which I appreciated a lot. I like that. I liked that Peter had to figure out what to do, and he didn't figure it out in one shot. So it was good to see him think on his feet this time a little bit harder than he usually does. But that's going to be it for me. As far as the rating, I'm going to start rating these episodes. I give this episode a 4 out of 5. Solid episode. Animation solid as always. Dialogue solid. No real question marks here. No real weird moments. No cringe moments really either. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me, guys. And if you made it this far, I just want to say thank you so much for sticking through the video. And if you have a moment, please like and subscribe. It helps the channel a ton. And leave a comment if you want to talk about the episode or what your favorite moment was. Anyway, I appreciate you, and I hope you have a great day. And remember, with great power comes great responsibility. I'm Dual Dire, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.